So yeah, Jennifer was fired from her firm and everything, for apparently for being a liability and for having done what she did. So I think her turning into She-Hulk and saving lives kind of had her presented and labeled as a liability, and like it swayed the jury in her favor because of the heroic act and everything. So then that kind of sent her down like an actual kind of like a, what's the word, like a, not a swivel, not a whirlwind, like a, what's the word, like a swirlwind? No, like a swirlwind, a spiral. Sent her down a spiral of being fired and then just not being hired at all by any other law firm, and then sent her back to square one of the job market and everything. So yeah, she was stuck in like a bit of a slump until she was approached by Mr. Holloway later on. But yeah, I think that entire kind of portion of the episode kind of showed how, like, you know, how her being She-Hulk alone was enough to really make or break her career. Because then it broke her career at first, and then it made her career, because then she was later approached to be the head and the face of the Superhuman Law Division at GLK&H and everything. But yeah, but then I think her kind of like her career pretty much being broken. Because at first it was that I think interesting to see too. I think at first, like, she was actually being lauded and praised at the bar by her colleagues and everything for being She-Hulk and for doing what she did. And then I think even the exceptions being like Dennis, who was just like him just kind of like being like, oh, how did you get those powers? Or like, was it nepotism because you just related to the Hulk and you know Bruce and all that kind of stuff, and him just kind of just hating her for what happened, and him just being the usual little dipshit that he is and everything. And then of course like her own employer being like, you know, oh, because the jury was sort of swayed in her favor, and then the other guy, Mr. Holloway, actually kind of actually had the case declared a mistrial and everything. But then that kind of proved that she was a liability, and her being She-Hulk was a liability to her own law firm, so then she had to be let go and everything. So being She-Hulk proved to be slightly more of an obstacle in the first place than she was really prepared for, so that happened. But then yeah, I mean the main thing being the fact that like her being She-Hulk and her being a lawyer had little to no relation in that scene at all. Like her being She-Hulk was to do with her actually saving the jury and the people in that court from any actual damage or injuries or anything that Titania was actually inflicting upon them. So I think then she was more than, like, as Jennifer Walters and as the lawyer that she is, and as the capable lawyer that she is, she was more than ready and more than prepared to actually deliver the closing argument that she needed to in order to win the case and everything. But then her being She-Hulk was literally like, even not to blame Nikki, but then even Nikki herself actually did kind of prompt her to become She-Hulk, to actually kind of to cease the destruction, to help kind of de-escalate the situation, which is exactly what she did. But then even after transforming back, she said, I'm ready to give my closing argument. So she was more than ready, as Jennifer Walters, as the lawyer that she is, to actually do her job in as human of a way as possible. So the only superhumanity presented from her and displayed from her was her actually saving the jury. And I think, arguably, like, no one else in that room could have done it. But then it's like, again, she's not going to... I think now she is going to be She-Hulk as a lawyer, because that's what GLK&H actually wants from her. But then even before, she never transformed or even actually used her persona as She-Hulk to actually try and sway the jury or to actually win any extra points. But I think she was more than ready to actually use her own closing argument and her own skills and her own kind of stuff to actually to try and win the case and try and close it and everything. So moving into a new office too, I think she even caught stares and eyes from people being like, oh, now people are going to think I only really got this position because she's She-Hulk. Because then he said that they were also opening up a Superhuman Law Division too. So then they were opening that up simply because they knew that there was another superhuman kind of lawyer in town and in the system and everything. And I think, fair enough, we have Matt Murdock, but then Matt is also known and he's capable and he's actually spent time successfully separating him being Daredevil from him being Matt Murdock. So like, I think no one actually knows that Daredevil and Matt Murdock are actually the same person. So then because of that, he's able to use his own identity and his own lawyer skills at Matt Murdock at being in order to actually be a successful lawyer. But then and for him, there's no like obvious transformation. He has a suit, but then that's just the suit. He has no other transformation. He doesn't change or size up or size down or anything. He's just him. But with Jennifer, like she actually does enlarge and turn into like a big green tall kind of lady and everything. So then that's kind of like a more obvious thing. So then because of that, I think that then prompted GLK&H to actually come up with like a new superhuman division, because he even said like there's more and more eccentric kind of superhumans coming out of the woodwork, and I think that means that there's more and more, because I think up until now the only people actually dealing with the aftermath of superhuman affairs and events has been the DODC, but then even then that's just been them. The only thing they did was actually with Spider-Man too. Spider-Man No Way Home was the only kind of thing that we saw where they actually took time to deal with that, and then even then that was them actively kind of like taking legal repercussions to Spider-Man 2. But then even then in that one too, I think that one. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think Matt Murdock was loyal for that too. Matt Murdock for then because he was Spider. I think that was why I think Matt knew that this was actually a superhero case too. Like no one else taking it up. So I think that then kind of raised the question, like, I'm kind of wondering, like, if the events of that movie were any different, if maybe She-Hulk could have been his lawyer, because then I feel like Matt Murdock was his lawyer, for the sake of like story-wise, even for them actually wanting to bring Daredevil and Matt Murdock back into the frame, because then that then could also help to kind of ignite the flames for Daredevil Born Again, the actual series coming. So I think that was part of why that happened, so to actually bring Matt Murdock back and to recanonize that and everything. So. Like maybe then like She-Hulk being the only other obvious kind of superhuman kind of attorney they have, maybe then that's like maybe that's Holloway kind of banking, like actually playing the field and actually kind of actually capitalizing on that, perhaps actually him seeing him knowing that She-Hulk is now the only kind of openly kind of superhuman attorney out there, but then also like as he claimed too, like there's actually like a more like there's like a spike in cases involving superhuman people involving superhumans that needs to be kind of taken care of too. So then he sees her as the perfect kind of candidate in that way. But then he also sees She-Hulk too. He also sees She-Hulk because he did explicitly tell her, you need to be She-Hulk in the GLH&K firm and also in the courtroom too. So like whenever she's at work and whenever she's doing work as a lawyer, she needs to be She-Hulk. And then everywhere else, but then in the prison she needs to be. In the prison she needs to be human. In the prison, like no superpowers allowed in the prison. So in the prison she's allowed to be Jennifer Walters and allowed to be in human form. But because then her being She-Hulk and her saving people was what actually I think maybe in this case because then she transformed into She-Hulk in a very human and very 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 kind of like non-enhanced kind of trials, and that's what swayed them. So maybe if she's now taking part in superhuman cases, maybe then that way she being a superhuman herself, she might kind of have access to like more of an equal playing field, and that way there might be less sway, I guess. But it depends on exactly what kind of cases they're dealing with. Like if it's like power usage or like accidents at work, or if it's like actual accidents out in public and incidents out in public and everything. So don't know, but fair to add, I think it also kind of feels like somewhat more like a tactical kind of play by Holloway too, like him actively declaring the case a mistrial, which then gets her fired, but then him maybe even seeing that she also companies are outward, maybe even publicly, maybe even very outwardly kind of refusing to hire her because of what's happening, because then they themselves can't risk like liability by hiring her and actually having her do the same thing in their courtroom too. So but then he plays the field very tactically in that way. So then he has like her fired from his kind of opposing kind of law firm, but then he also sees that he himself is his own firm has actually seen like a rise in these kinds of cases, and he knows that she's the only one actually kind of or she's the best one she's the one best kind of suited to actually kind of play this role. So then he actually kind of hires her for his own side. So it's like again like a very very technically kind of played kind of move too, so then it gives her a job, but then also arguably a better job too, like maybe a better paid job too. So then she gets a whole new office. She gets a way better office than she got. Like I did not remember her first office actually being nearly as flashy as this one. They did this one like a fully kind of like a skyscraper type style view of the city and everything. She gets a mini fridge. She did not have a mini fridge in that first office. She did not have a mini fridge in that first office. So clearly going up in the world, but she does have that kind of well-founded fear of actually kind of being seen differently by her co-workers and even by superiors too, like her actually kind of like her now being worried that people will see her and actually think that she only got the job because she's She-Hulk. But then, in fairness, she did, but it's also because she's superhuman. I think he wanted a superhuman lawyer to be the face of it. But then also, he did only open this division because She-Hulk was there. Like he needed I think, again, he saw an opportunity and took it. He saw a spike in superhuman cases, but then he didn't take it because he didn't have any lawyers kind of fit to actually see that, and he didn't have a division fit to oversee those cases. But now he's seen that She-Hulk is there, and she's pretty much like the only lawyer there that's actually kind of able and willing to actually kind of able and also kind of mostly kind of willing to actually take on those cases. So then maybe like his own firm has cases of like lawyers and employees kind of like maybe feeling like they're not being paid enough, or feeling like they're not really getting that many cases. But now instead of actually giving them more cases, he's opening up a new division and pouring funds into that. So then maybe people might kind of see it as unfair in that way, but then also just kind of seeing her She-Hulk all the time too kind of might kind of makes her feel like people might think that she only got the job because she's She-Hulk, but then she has to actually kind of then reprove herself to other people. Constantly proving herself to women, constantly proving herself to men anyway, but then actually reproving herself to any female colleagues that she has, and actually kind of proving to them that she is actually Jennifer Walters, and she is a very, very capable and very, very kind of like educated lawyer who has the mountain of student loan debt from law school to actually prove it too. So yeah, I think it's gonna be like a journey she didn't really kind of want to have to take again, but then she's probably gonna have to deal with it anyway. So there's that. So that's not going to be like a really, really fun thing to have to go through again. So that just kind of sucks in general. So there's that. And I feel like if anything, that's just going to be even more of a reason for Jen to feel opposed and for Jen to even slightly kind of dislike the She-Hulk persona too, because then now her boss is actively controlling when and where there's nothing to say that she can't transform into She-Hulk when she's at home, but then even at work, she has to be She-Hulk because She-Hulk is the face of the Superhuman Order of Venus. It's not Jennifer. Like, it's okay. I think he wants her to be the face of it, but then I think he hasn't actively opposed her kind of being. It's not like they've sent her back to law school as She-Hulk. I think she's still able to actually use the skills and the qualifications she has from law school as Jennifer Walters too. But then in terms of presentation, she has to be She-Hulk at all times. So even as like now I've got to go get a whole new wardrobe that won't like burst or tear every time I transform. So now because then she's got to actively go to work as She-Hulk too. So she has to get like extra large kind of suits and skirts and whatever. So yeah, if it's more of She-Hulk in a suit, then I'm not going to complain. But then of course, then there does come the disadvantage of her actually having to feel like having to choose between whether or not she actually is She-Hulk or Jennifer Walters at court too, because then if more stuff like the Titania incident happens, then she's going to have to deal with superhumans actually lashing out or fighting back in courtroom too. She's going to have to probably try and help contain them. So yeah, no, I think now she now in this more of like a unique way, she's probably going to have more difficulty feeling like she's in control. Because in fairness, I feel like it probably can't be fully compared to Bruce being the Hulk on the battlefield, to Bruce being the Hulk on the battlefield, because then that was like he actively needed to be the Hulk on the battlefield. So then that was like a requirement, and that was something that even he understood too. Like he knew that Bruce on the battlefield could only do so much. Then Hulk was the lean, mean fighting machine and everything. But with this one, this is her still communicating with them as a human. This is her still even kind of mentally presenting herself as a human too. So but then physically she has to be the She-Hulk, because then that's who she is. So then her feeling like that much less control over herself at work. I wonder if that is going to be the case. But then if she knows that she can still kind of present herself as Jennifer Walters, even if she's displaying herself as She-Hulk, then I don't know if she might find a way to get used to that, or maybe if she kind of finds a way to use that to advantage, maybe, or just experiments with it, maybe, or I don't know. But either way, I think that's now the way that things are for her in the workplace. So there was even that discussion between Nikki and Jennifer too about the name She-Hulk too, like people chanting She-Hulk and be like, no, please tell me that, and Jennifer be like, please do not tell me that's going to stick or anything, and then even them trying to suck down the names like She-Hulk, Girl Hulk, Her Hulk, Lady Hulk, and just basically feminized versions of the Hulk's name. And I think again, it's from it's very definitively from the comics. In the comics, she was born as She-Hulk as well, so it's simple, it sticks. I think. I feel like I think it's very understandable to see why she. It's very understandable and it's very clear to see that even the societal kind of dubbing of it is pretty much just kind of connecting her to the Hulk, but as the woman version of him. So then, I think in her eyes, after everything she's been through too, actually just yet again having her identity and having her skills and having her persona just kind of linked to another man, and people only recognizing her through him. Also, not something she's like the biggest fan of and everything. So I think she pretty much has to be She-Hulk, because that is kind of what the kind of comic kind of is and everything. So hopefully in time she does learn to actually kind of reinvigorate herself through the She-Hulk persona, and actually maybe not reclaim, but actually going to claim it as her own, and actually claim it as her own name, as opposed to just accepting it as something that society calls her. So being like, I am the She-Hulk, but it's because it's something that she chooses to be and presents herself as opposed to something that society has kind of picked for her and everything. So I guess we'll see how that goes. So yeah, and then we met Pug too. We met Pug, her new coworker, played by I can't remember what the actual. I mean, I do know it. I just really can't remember exactly what the actual actor's name is. The guy who plays Pug. I think he played, most notably for me, he played Adrian Chase on Arrow. He played Prometheus, arguably one of the best villains that show's had, and one of the best seasons too. So I think he played Prometheus on there. Don't know exactly what else he might have been in, but now he's switched over to Marvel, and he's been taken in by Marvel to play Pug. So really curious to see what he's like. And I think he's the only other co-worker there who actually going to go in and give his own personal welcome. He introduced himself. He gave them a welcome basket of goodies and everything. And even I think probably like I think probably something unique to him too. I think don't know if anyone else working there would have done it, but he was actually considerate enough to actually give her like a little mini map to the best bathroom to poop in as well. So he was that considerate. He's like, if you ever need the restroom here, then I mean, don't know if it's like going to be like gender neutral or whatever, but he says it's a fucking bathroom, people need to use it. So there's that. So he they then actually drew up like not even like a clue. It was actually arguably kind of well detailed too. Actually, kind of had like the path and the location and everything as a map kind of fucking would. So yeah, they actually drew up like a mini map for the best kind of bathroom for her to poop in. So that considerate, and he actually gave like a welcome basket and introduced himself. So yeah, I think most of all, I think he actually did introduce himself and actually just even seeing her as She-Hulk, he actually did. I think from what I remember, he actually did treat her like normally too. He did like gawk at her or ask her so many kind of questions and didn't like kind of to try and connect her to the Hulk or just like shake her hand for too long. I think he just literally just introduced himself and actually treated her as normal. So I think probably going to be one of the more likable colleagues and one of the more likable characters actually working there and in the show and everything. So very much looking forward to seeing more of him and how he works. I don't know if he's like another. I mean, probably another lawyer. I think don't know for sure if he's like another lawyer or if he's like a paralegal or something. But yeah, I mean, even in terms of paralegals, I think Jen was definitely able to actually get Nikki over to the firm too, because then I think Holloway was just like, I don't care who you get as your paralegal, just as long as you work for me and everything. So yeah, so Nikki and Jen reunited at GLKNH, and now they have Pug on there, but presumably they have Pug on their side too. So looking forward to seeing how they all work together and everything. So that's going to be fun stuff. Hopefully, I already get the feeling that Pug is going to be much more likable and much better than Dennis, but I'm willing to still kind of let the future episodes kind of decide exactly how well he actually works with them and stuff like that. So yeah, Pug. Nice to meet Pug. And yeah, we met her family too. We had like a nice kind of little family dinner scene. I really don't think I've ever actually heard that iteration of the name. I've heard of Chad. I've heard of Chad. Chud. I've never heard of Chud being used as a name, but I think Chud is used more as more of like a derivative kind of internet kind of like lingo and everything. Like you call someone Chud if they're being a Chud, but I've never heard of Chud being named Chad. Chad is a name, but then I think Chad has also kind of, because of how Chads in the world are, I think Chad has in itself also become internet lingo, but Chad is a new one. Chad is a new one. I don't know if it's actually a legitimate name or if it's them playing around with the third letter of that name or something, but Chad is a new one. So Chad is Chad, and he was, I think the parallels of Jennifer being kind of having lost her job as a lawyer and as a pretty prestigious lawyer too, but then Chad having been promoted to manager at the Best Buy that he was working at, so that kind of parallel being a thing, and just him kind of generally being like him being a Ched, or him actually being a Ched in the episode, and even in the mid-credit scene too, like, I could have put the TV up, it wasn't a big deal, and all that kind of shit. So, so Ched is there, Ched. But then I think her dad is unarguably the more kind of interesting kind of figure in that scene too, like him being interested in the Avengers, him being concerned about the Avengers, but then his biggest concern in the episode being about Hawkeye and his arrows. I think, I think him just being like so worried about like, okay, so we know Hawkeye uses arrows in battle and he uses it in pretty much everything he does, but then what happens to the arrows? Like him being so concerned about exactly what happens to the arrows. I think I am more surprised that no one literally thought to bring up the actual giant, I mean, assuming it's still there, the actual giant arrow sticking up out of the bridge in New York, because that feels like it should be like a newsworthy thing. It feels like someone at the dinner table should have actually brought up, oh hey, what about the arrow sticking up out of the bridge? When Hawkeye going to come and fix that, we'll take that, because then cars are being stopped, nothing can really cross through. So then it uses pin particles, but there's no word on if those pin particles are going to run out, or if someone's going to time us, or maybe if they timed out and minimized or something. But no one really brought up the time that even happened, let alone whether or not it's actually still there. So yeah, but he's very, very vocally concerned about exactly what happens to Hawkeye. Like if he goes back, if he collects them, if he makes more, what happens to the ones that are left behind if the DODC comes and picks those up, or or something. So yeah, he's very vocally concerned about Hawkeye's arrows and Hawkeye as a kind of as a hero that she uses it like a very finite source of kind of offensive kind of weaponry. So yeah, that was a thing. So yeah, I think in terms of actually referencing other kind of giant kind of happenings in the MCU, I think for like from viewers too, from viewers, I think the most vocal concern has still been about the Eternals. I think unarguably the much bigger, much more visible kind of thing has been the Eternals kind of thing of like of Tiamat's head and a few of his fingers actually sticking out of the earth. Because then he never fully kind of obviously he never fully kind of came out, but then they still stopped him mid-transformation, so then that is stuck there. Like, you probably can't take it out, you probably can't, like, fix it, or you probably can't reverse it or anything, but then, now, the head and a few fingers of an Eternal are just sticking out of the earth, so, no, I think, as far as I know, no one has really actually kind of brought that up, no one has actually referenced that. I think it was on the news in the Eternals movie, but then actually outside of that, in other projects, I think no one has really kind of thought to mention, like, a big head and some fingers actually sticking out of the earth, and some eyes sticking out of the earth, or anything like that. It's pretty much the Earth, almost definitely the equivalent, the Earth equivalent of the face on Mars, which is essentially just rocks and a shadow. So with this one, this is an actual kind of an actual celestial head and a hand kind of sticking out of the ocean and everything, and it's also explicitly sticking out of the ocean. So there's no land being disrupted or anything, but still. It's a pretty notable thing. So I'm surprised literally no one has actually raised any concerns about that. So that kind of seems kind of discussion worthy. So it's just like a whole thing. So and then arguably the bigger kind of part of the episode too, Emil Blonsky. We reunite with Emil Blonsky in this episode. So yeah, he's back. And I think based on everything that happened, I can't tell if that whole section of him having been spiritually transformed and him being different now and stuff is like completely true, or maybe if some of it is like a half truth. Because I think after she did take the case and called Bruce to tell him that, I think Bruce did even say that he was actually among one of the victims and one of the people that Blonsky actually wrote like a haiku style kind of apology note to and everything. So that much might be true. And which I'll get to that part in a moment. But then, yeah, I think he kind of claimed to have been spiritually transformed, and he now chooses to not transform into the Abomination. But then he gave off his backstory as him kind of being him having been exploited by the U.S. government as a soldier too, like him having been like a Marines kind of soldier that Thunderbolt Ross actually saw as useful and saw as like a useful and potential candidate for their super soldier program. I think also may have been one of the more kind of interesting arcs within the MCU too. Like ever since Steve Rogers became the world's first superhero through the serum, ever since then, and also most notably ever since his sacrifice, I think people all from within the US government have actually kind of tried, or just within world governments as a whole, have actually kind of tried and sometimes failed to actually kind of recreate what made the serum so successful. So we've seen it with Bruce. I think he thought gamma radiation might be the key, so then he did that, and then he turned into Hulk, and then even Ross kind of sanctioned and I think and kind of claimed oversight over that kind of US government kind of program that he then considered Blonsky for, and he actually gave Blonsky the serum after he was injured, after being cursed up by the Hulk in Incredible Hulk and everything. So yeah, so I think, but then Blonsky actually claimed that after everything that they'd both been through, I think Blonsky was then imprisoned and kind of then labeled as a villain. But then Bruce, kind of who did near enough the same thing as him, causing destruction and killing people. But then he actually over time grew to. Granted, I think Bruce actually kind of got the time to do it, but then he actually still ended up being actually lauded and celebrated as a hero and as an Avenger and everything. But then. But then again, in defense of Bruce, I think it still took him time. He still went through his fair share of actual Hulk-related trauma and stuff after that, where he still lacked control and where he still kind of initiated chaos and everything. So it still took time for Bruce, but then he still kind of got to the point where he actually got to be the hero and got to be celebrated as hero and everything. So. And then we've had like Mace in the Patriot, Mace in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. 2, the Patriot. I think he wanted to lead. He wanted to actually be a leader, and he wanted to kind of like actually kind of be like the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. He actually wanted to try and help people, but then Talbot and the government took that as a sign to actually make him the new Captain America. I think each time the goal of these super serums and these super soldier projects have been to recreate Captain America, to actually bring forth the new Captain America. Because I think Cap was the first one; he was the first successful one. Steve became Cap, but then for Steve, Cap became the symbol that he wanted to be. Like he actually wanted to fight for peace and for justice and for freedom and all that kind of stuff. But then in the government side, all they saw was the serum working and creating the perfect superhuman soldier that they could use. But then, as we saw in Civil War, Steve was a man of his own ideals, of his own strengths, and using his powers to try and do the right thing. But then for the government, they see super soldiers as nothing more than weapons of war and weapons for them to try and use to enact their own kind of warmongering justice across the world and everything. So I think even for Blonsky, I think he was the perfect soldier that Ross kind of saw as the perfect kind of instrument to inject his super serum with it. And even in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we saw that John Walker? I think it was probably John Walker. He also was a perfect soldier, but then they never gave him the serum. He gave himself the serum after he saw Zemo with it and everything. So he gave himself the serum, but then he was the first kind of the human without the serum, and then now we have Sam, who also hasn't taken the serum, but then he's given himself training and everything. So each time the goal has been to recreate Captain America, to actually create the new Captain America and everything. So yeah, with Blonsky, I think he's kind of he was yet another recipient of the same kind of government sanctioned agenda to actually create their own weapon of war and everything without actually understanding or even accepting the truth of what Steve was in his heart and everything. So Blonsky actually has like 7 different kind of soulmates as well. He has 7 different soulmates that he made through the prison pen pal system. So whether or not that's actually people within the same DODC prison he's in, or if it's in other prisons, I don't know. I mean, probably more likely he's probably only allowed contact with other kind of superhuman prisoners in the DODC. So then there's that. But yeah, 7 soulmates. I think he writes kind of haiku style apology notes to each of his victims, to each of the people he's hurt over the years. And I think Bruce was one of them. When Jen called Bruce, she found out that Bruce was actually one of them, and he and Blonsky made amends to, like he said, I think even the tongue-in-cheek reference to Norton South I really did not catch until after the episode 2, like him kind of like to talking about the fight they had in Harlem, to him being like, that fight was so many years ago, I was a completely different person then, literally. And then even Jen's little kind of haha at the end too. So I literally did not catch on to that immediately either. I think the most kind of tongue-in-cheek reference that they could possibly make towards Edward Norton having him in the Hulk back then, and that movie being the only kind of display of those events that we have now. So that being like the first kind of actual fourth wall kind of reference that they make, where even Jen's like, yeah, I know what you mean. You used to literally be played by a different guy, and you used to have a different face and everything. So all of that kind of stuff changed. So yeah, that's the first kind of official kind of even like that's the first reference that they've made towards Edward Norton being the Hulk since then, and it makes sense to say it makes sense they would also kind of be like a fourth wall aided kind of subtlety powered kind of reference too. So works on that regard. But yeah, it's the first kind of proper reference we've had since then to Edward Norton actually being the Hulk. So yeah, hope he's doing well. I think that movie also has been kind of received probably in like a mixed fashion too. I think it's been years since I've seen this. I probably need to go back and give it a rewatch at some point too. But I think it was also like creative differences between Norton and Marvel that kind of resulted in them actually letting him go and bringing someone else on. But I think it can also be arguable that Mark Ruffalo has not been a bad choice for the Hulk or Banner either. He's been really, really great as both. So, it wasn't even a terrible change. It also was like a change that actually kind of turned out to be pretty good. So, yeah, I think even Bruce himself actually recognizing that too. I used to have a different face. I used to have like a different kind of, like a appearance and everything. But now I've changed everything, so can't help. I honestly, I think it probably goes for most people, but I really can't help but wonder how different the MCU would be if Norton actually did stay on. Like if he actually was the Hulk in the Avengers, if he was the Hulk that the other Avengers knew, and if he was the Hulk we had now. But you know what? Again, Mark has been really great. I think having Mark Ruffalo on as the Hulk has been really kind of impactful, and he's been doing like a really great job. So it works. It still works. So. Yeah, but I think he's not the only one either. I think he's not the only one either. We've had Terrence Howard having first played Rhodey, and I think they did. I think they did that. I think they did kind of do that in Iron Man 2. I think I actually did kind of read about how they kind of did reference it in Iron Man 2, like when Rhodey first walked on screen as when Don Cheadle first walks on screen as Rhodey, like he does tell Tony like, it's me, I'm here, get used to it. Like that's actually him. Apparently that's actually him kind of signifying like, I know I'm different, and even Marvel telling the audience like, yeah, we know Rhodey's different, but just, he's here, he's Don Cheadle, just get used to it. So this is how things are now. So yeah, and even fair to Don Cheadle, he's been doing a great job as War Machine and Rhodey from the beginning too. So yeah, it's just changes. It's just changes happening, and even now, I think the less notable changes have been kind of like having multiple actors play different roles from the MCU too. So I think that's definitely happened like a couple of times here and there. So yeah, that's kind of happened. So that's been a thing. So it works. I think it's great. I think it's great more than I think it's great more than I think that they can actually kind of look back on that and kind of poke fun, or actually kind of take that in kind of stride instead of actually kind of letting it upset their process or actually upset anyone in the process too. So yeah, it definitely works. It works. Jennifer actually kind of offered to actually invite him to LA and stuff to hang out and everything, but then he said he's a little busy, so, and then the camera zoomed out and showed him on the Sakarian messenger craft zooming off into space and everything. So he's headed back to Sakaar. So I wonder what that kind of that's leading into. Like he's heading back to Sakaar. I think we know the Grandmaster is back there too. So maybe like I think when we know how much the Grandmaster actually kind of treasured and prized Hulk as his kind of champion and everything. So I don't know if but now because Bruce is changed and he's now merged with the Hulk, I don't know if that's going to be any different for the Grandmaster, because then Bruce obviously isn't really going to be up for fighting in that ring anymore. So I don't know if the Grandmaster's going to try and find a way to actually turn him back, or if he's going to try and find a way to force him to fight or something. So I do know World War Hulk is a thing. World War Hulk is a thing. I don't know what it's about exactly, but I know it's a thing. I know it's a thing. Probably about a world war involving Hulk or Hulks or something, or him just kind of fighting loads of other people in like a war, kind of in like a wartime fashion. So World War Hulk is a thing. So maybe that's, I mean, and Sakaar is like a whole other world. So maybe if Hulk kind of turns that into his own world or something, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up. So World War Hulk is a thing. So maybe that's that. Maybe that's something that the MCU wants to explore and everything. But as of right now, all we know is that Hulk is on the messenger craft. It came back after running them off the road the first time. It came back and picked them up again. So yeah, he has to go to Sakaar and see what's up there. So, but then yeah, the ending did also literally show. It did literally show. Apparently, it was live. It was an actual live broadcast. So apparently, Abomination had actually allegedly escaped from prison too. But then there was also like a leaked video accompanying it showing Abomination fighting in the underground ring, and that footage we recognized from Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, when Shang-Chi and Katie go to the underground fight ring, and that's run by Xialing, and then we find Abomination fighting Wong. So Wong is there. So and we know Wong is actually going to be in this too. So I think he's probably going to pop up at some point and do some stuff, and he's going to start talking to She-Hulk about different stuff happening in the MCU now that the playground and everything is changing and everything. So there's that kind of stuff. It kind of does make me question, because then it does make me question exactly how old that footage is, because then if that's happening now, because then we know that the Shang-Chi post credit where Bruce is happens after that. It happens long after. It happens at the end of everything that happens. And so then but then in that clip, Bruce is in human form and he has a sling. But then now we know that after the from the first episode of She-Hulk, Bruce uses Jennifer's kind of better blood to actually kind of improve him and to actually fix his arm, and he no longer has a broken arm or anything. So then there's that. So then kind of does make me question exactly how things line up in that regard, because then that makes me question exactly how old that footage was, because then if it's leaked, it will still be leaked. If it's leaked, and if it's newly leaked, then it will still be leaked. But then exactly how old that footage is, it definitely feels like a question that comes into play, because then there's no guarantee that this breakout directly correlates with that underground fighting, because then if he's broken out before, then the leaked footage could easily be from one of the previous times he's broken out, but then this could just be one of the newer times he's broken out. So that could imply that maybe the breakout means that he's actually breaking out routinely as Abomination, but then he also maybe that means that he actually is also genuinely enjoying being Abomination, and maybe and that's where the half truth comes in, that he actually does turn into Abomination again, and he actually does kind of try to transform and stuff. So maybe then he actually does still enjoy being an Abomination. But then he's not hurting anyone. He's actually not hurting anyone. Him being in the underground fight ring means that he's actually in an actual controlled area, and he's actually fighting another opponent who signed up for this kind of thing too, like Wong actively signing up, like Wong himself actively signing up to be in a fighting ring too. So maybe they're both blown off stress. Maybe they're both actually blown off stress by actually very consensually kind of fighting each other too. So maybe that's just their way of blowing off steam in a universe kind of driven by world-ending events and everything. So maybe this time actually fighting of their own accord and fighting in a way that they know that neither one is going to fully die is their way of doing it. So there's that. But yes, I think that might correlate, it might not, but this time at least, then the news headline was that the news headline was that there is yet to be any word from Abomination's lawyer, from Abomination's attorney, who we know is She-Hulk, to actually kind of give her word on what this means and what's happening and where Abomination goes off to and everything, so that's going to be a whole different thing for her to have to explore too. So then her client's been lying to her, and then her client's also been breaking out and signing up for illegal underground fights and everything, and it's still illegal too, so it's still definitely against the law, so there's that. So yeah, that I think maybe that kind of whole underground fight ring is going to have to be a thing that's kind of exposed and maybe kind of taken down too. Because but I think, to be fair though, I think from what we see from the end of Shang-Chi too, I think the fighting ring was just one of her kind of empires, and now from the end of Shang-Chi, from the other post-credit scene, we also know that Xialing has easily taken over the 10 rings from her father's demise. So the fight ring was just pretty much like just stage 1 of her kind of criminal empire. So now she's moved on to the 10 rings and overseeing that stuff. So she can easily let the fighting ring go, because now she has the 10 rings at her grasp and everything. So yeah, she's moved on. She's going bigger and better and higher and everything. So. And I think I remember from going back in the episode too, I think that when from the opening of announcing from talking about Titania's kind of intrusion of the quorum too, I think the mini little kind of scrolling headline at the bottom did say that Titania's lawyer said there was actually a really unfortunate misunderstanding caused by an extreme case of low blood sugar. So yeah, apparently and I think she's also a superhuman influence too. She's actually a superhuman influence. So that's got to be an interesting kind of backstory to try and uncover and everything. Don't know if that's exactly how. Because again, I think with that kind of profession too, I think probably don't know for sure if it has any relation at all to work. I think it's probably unlikely, because I think she did debut in the 60s or something, like back in the 19 somethings, along with She-Hulk, I think. So I think for back then, I think comics being written back then, I think obviously they would be tailored for what was modern and for what was kind of trending back then too, and social media definitely wasn't. So I feel like maybe in that case, like this being her backstory, maybe something that they actually tailored to fit more with what modern times are and what modern professions are too. Like influencers are everywhere, and influencers is currently being kind of seen and displayed as an actual profession to have and everything. So because of that, I think I'm guessing that maybe she had something similar back then too. Maybe back then she was still a public figure of some kind, but then now with what we have now and with what society's like now influencers is something you can definitely be. So maybe they've kind of tailored it to actually fit more with what we have now. So that being said, I'm hoping we still get a good enough glimpse of her too, because then hoping that she's not she's not just another character or another villain that Marvel just seemingly kind of underuses or underutilizes or anything. So I'm hoping they should give her a fair amount of screen time and a fair amount of kind of stuff to work with and everything. Because again, if you haven't seen her as Titania on The Good Place, go and watch The Good Place. She is so good. She gets along with everyone so well. That entire cast is just absolutely stellar. That entire cast is absolutely stellar. But that show is just absolute kind of just so fucking good. But yeah, I think Jamil as Tahani is easily one of my favorite things about that show too. She's so good on that show, so damn good. So I'm hoping her part on that show actually had some kind of influence in Marvel wanting her to be a part of this, and I think her at least actually using her kind of her capabilities as an actor to try and actually kind of come onto this too. So I'm hoping that they give her like a good and fair amount of screen time, actually give her some good stuff to work with and everything. So yeah, I guess we can only really wait and see exactly how much of a villain, how much of an enemy she is to She-Hulk and everything. So I guess time will tell. So yeah, Titania. And I think for now that might be it. It was honestly just feels so weird and just almost wrong, having to re-record this after everything, because the first one I did just felt perfect. So now this feels so much different. I'm hoping the video was still at least semi-enjoyable for you guys, and it was still kind of okay to watch. So yeah, still kind of figuring out the kinks with this new kind of with this new mic and everything. So yeah, that was pretty much my thoughts and my reaction for She-Hulk episode 2. So thank you guys as always so much for being here and for watching this video. And if you guys enjoyed it, then feel free to leave a like and comment what your thoughts are and what you thought of this and where you think the show is headed and what you hope to see and all that kind of stuff. For those interested, full-length reaction over on Patreon, so you can go check it over there. And yeah, that is pretty much it. So until next time, bye bye for now.